All right, welcome to a quick trade review for 7:30, July 30th. Um, break even day. Let's get that out of the way. Break even day um, was down about over 2R for the day at one point, and with a couple good trades, I was able to kind of just finish off with a break even day. Traded both ES and CL. Um, Overall goal for the moving forward currently is for me to focus on the clarity of the setups. So really trying to not get involved with trade setups that aren't extremely clear to me, and I know what that looks like. Um, and that's going to be at the intraday level for things. So the DRO, the DVA, the rhythm, the order flow. Looking for a setup to have good rhythm, looking for a setup to have be at the good DVA location. Looking for clarity in the order in the delta, letting me know, hey, look at me, short me or buy. So one or the other, or looking for those three components to be very clear and helping me execute my setups. In a CL, delta doesn't tend to be super a big factor, but it can be sometimes. It can be, and most of my trades with crude oil are mostly rhythm based, narrative based. That's usually what decides, or DVA based. Whether a setup in crude is quality or not. Um, so going into today, the overall execution of that goal was like a C minus. Gave myself a C minus for that. In crude oil, it was pretty straightforward. I focused on IPB shorts. I had a narrative of, destination point here at the monthly previous value area low, and that's what I was aiming for. Into the start of the day, we had a nice spike up into DVA value area low, and then we saw, an attempt to go imbalance with some weakness, and that to me was indication to go and short. So I took a short, got stopped out, went for the short again, stopped out, or took a scale, stopped out, and then continued that process to the up into this last trade where I just pretty much almost basically scratched, but did take a loss, just given that scale wasn't an optimal scale. I did prepare to size up on this trade right here, just because we were building into this low, and I was expecting for price to push lower quickly with incoming volume to the downside, and maybe potentially finish into monthly previous value area low. That did not happen. So even on this turn here, I immediately got out for most of my position, and took a stop on the rest, and I ended up tightening that stop as well. And then I noticed, we popped back up, and then I went ahead and shorted again. But of course, a little more skeptical of the overall story for the day from an intraday and a contextual story. I was skeptical, and I didn't push too hard anymore. Up until the rotation higher, where I felt we were just kind of clearing the highs for the day, and there's been situations where you'll get just a pop up, and then you'll continue to finish whatever story was for that day. This was the part where I definitely got away from the goal that I was shooting for, where I was jumping ahead of myself and trying to get involved when for a move lower, when there really wasn't confirmation of that move lower. It wasn't until this last trade for the day right here where, all right, now we got that spike up, we cleared those highs. You even see order flow kind of join in and add to the trade by from delta neutral we get some selling, and then on this this uptick higher, we retest delta neutral, and you get an opportunity to short, which I did, and this was the best trade of this final sequence that I had here in crude. Yeah, and then that was essentially my day in crude. I even was again, you know, just setting myself up for the potential for a move lower. Just really trying to finish the narrative of on this monthly development area low, maintaining, and going with the narrative of the imbalance down on the monthly. We were also in balance on the weekly, traversing balance on the yearly with potential for yearly development area hot, development area low. Quarterly was pretty neutral at the moment, but that was the overall story I was looking to execute in crude oil. And could have been a little bit better, again, focusing on that process goal, which I think is pretty solid, just because, again, I get to see where I went wrong in terms, and how, if I would have done better on that process goal, I would have avoided this situation here, and I would have maybe ended up green for the day. So that, just a kind of difference I'm seeing that it could make by focusing on that process goal. And then moving into ES, I don't feel like I did a good enough job of giving myself clarity in regards to what ES could do. I came in with the bias of like, okay, we're probably not going to do much today, which I think was probably, relative to what we ended up seeing, it just wasn't the right thing to do, because we ended up with a huge move to the downside, and with lots of with some opportunity to participate in that, especially at the beginning of the day. I think was the best opportunity and the clearest. So keeping that in mind, I'm not beating myself up too much for it, because again, it wasn't extremely obvious. One of the things that I've been working on, as I've been noting in past videos, is just quality of the narrative, and how much clarity I have in regards to that. Coming into today, it wasn't that obvious to me. It wasn't super clear to me, and so therefore I'm not going to beat myself up over it, but I am going to reflect and see what sort of opportunities we could be taken away from a day like today, which you definitely had at the beginning of the day. I'm also noting that into Tuesday, I like I mentioned before, I use the second day VWAP as a tool, as a factor in my trading. Same way I'm using the ETH VWAP, DVAL, DVAH, all the good stuff. It's just a second day VWAP. And so Tuesdays is a little tough, because that's basically the weekly, all you have for the weekly. It's the same thing as the 2-day. And it doesn't carry as much weight. It doesn't have as much substance, I've noticed. And on a day like today, where I'm including that as part of my my prep, it's not doing much for me. The best trades, or the overall, the day was led by the ETH. The ETH, pretty much gave you the intraday story, and seeing that is just like, okay, well, maybe I should not be so inclined to factor in that 2-day VWAP on like at the beginning of the week. And then just so that's kind of for my own self, to keep that in mind, and reflect on that a bit, and seeing how I could improve that, and because maybe if I would have focused on the ETH, I might have had the opportunity to participate in some, and take a chunk of this move that we ended up seeing. Because if we look back, the shift in the order flow and the delta, it was quite substantial. What kept me out into the morning session was the lack of rhythm into, DVA high. But then again, you take into consideration how tight of a balance of DVA we had coming into the day. Well, you're not going to get much. You might not get that rotation that you might accept, that rhythm that we might want to see or we expect to see for a good quality trade. So that's some of my takeaways from today in ES. Overall, I did attempt to participate here. At the beginning, I'm executing my hypo of I'm expecting continued rotation back within DVA. Again, at this point, I'm not. I'm totally missing out on the fact of what's happening in the delta. I'm either oblivious to it or something's going on. But in hindsight, there's that clear weakness by buyers at certain points to get involved, and with that following the strong selling, that was some pretty cool stuff, and that is actually some stuff that I know I can be good at seeing in real time. But for some reason, I think I was looking at too much of a bigger picture instead of seeing what was in front. So really interesting, because usually you lose the forest from the trees. This time I lost the trees from the forest. Usually not always the case. And as we continue to the day, I continue to look for, continued either fast trends or reversals. Just I'm really trying now. I'm focused in to what's happening, but at this point in time, it's a little late. There's a much less clarity into the move lower. So I just find myself here taking longs and taking shorts, trying to figure out which way we're going. But again, just being very, I'm recognizing the fact that I don't really know what's going on. So I'm scratching like right off the bat. I'm not allowing these trades to go too much against me, and I'm also just, if I see it pop my way, and I'm like, you know what, I'm really getting away from my goal, which is focusing on a quality trade, and this just isn't it. These setups just weren't it, and this was a reflection of of me trying to focus on having executing a quality setup, which I didn't have for myself. Let's see, and then towards the end, I have this really nice one lot trade, essentially, just 1R, or I pretty much sized down from my usual size. For this one good trade, we hit into the second day DVAL, basically weekly development area low, and it was just something that made a lot of sense to me. We had some strong buying in the delta. I knew it wasn't going to go too far. I knew it was just going to be a rotational move, and my goal was pretty much to do exactly what I did. Which is, all right, let me maximize this rotation lower. Let me get in at a really good price. So as soon as I saw price spike high with, and delta start to slow down, I got confirmation a little bit later on that second little spike up in the delta, and then I had already been involved, and then closed out lower into as we approached development very low. And that pretty much was the one good trade I had in ES. And that pretty much covers the day for the day. Pretty break-even day. And not much to report, but just really a lot to learn from. All right, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.